And, as you might expect, he discovered that in Fonni a very funny thing happened once. Almost the only funny or unusual thing that has ever happened in Fonni. The incident concerns the church in this little village and the way its walls came to be covered with murals. Not in themselves very remarkable paintings, but their story has a truly Italian flavour to it.
Once upon a time, in the city of Milan, there lived two friends, an artist and a comedian, who got on the wrong side of the law and had to run away from their native city. They ran here to Sardinia, where they lived off their wits and off the generosity of the Sardinian people. Sometimes on their journeys, one would travel ahead of the other to prepare the ground. And so it happened that one day, the comedian arrived alone here at Fonni. He soon discovered that there was a monastery here, and since he was an experienced sponger, he made a beeline for it to catch a meal and a bed for the night. But he found that the monks were busy putting the finishing touches to a new chapel, and he saw at once that here was a chance for his friend the artist to get some work. He was a smooth talker, and he told the monks in glowing terms how much he admired their new chapel. But didn't they feel there was something missing? Murals, perhaps. What a pity there was no local artist to paint them some. But by the greatest of good fortune, he suddenly remembered that a friend of his, a most distinguished painter, was passing this way in a couple of days, and could surely be persuaded, for an appropriate fee, to do the job for them. The monks were delighted with the idea, and they invited the comedian to stay with them. Several days passed, and then several more. When the artist didn't appear, the comedian began to get a little nervous, and so did the monks, who hinted that if the friend didn't arrive soon, then he'd better go out and look for him. And in fact, they were so cool that the comedian realized that unless he could produce another popular idea very quickly, he'd lose both the job and the meal ticket. And so he announced rather huffily that, as it happened, he was a painter too, and what's more, a magician. And as the monks were being so difficult about the delay, he'd stretch a point and paint the murals himself, as long as they agreed to his rather odd conditions. First, he insisted on having a minute description of everything they wanted painted, to the last detail of subject and colour. And then he got them to agree that he could work in complete secrecy behind bolted doors and windows, and that no one should see the work until it was finished. And with the final warning that they shouldn't be surprised at the result, which would surely have magic qualities, he vanished with a lot of paint into the chapel. Far from being alarmed, the monks were delighted with the idea of a magic picture, which would surely attract visitors from all over the world and bring infinite material profit to the Franciscans. And so the brothers waited greedily outside the chapel, and the comedian waited anxiously inside. He was still counting on the artist to turn up and paint the picture and save his bacon. But as the days passed, he came to realize that he'd have to fall back on his master plan. And so he whitewashed the whole building and then just sat and thought. On the day that the work was due to be finished, he splashed a lot of paint on the floor and then went to have a quiet chat with the Father Abbot. He explained that the magnificent murals were complete, but that, as he'd warned, there'd be a magic quality about them. They'd be visible only to those who were legitimately born. Those born out of holy wedlock would see nothing but a whited wall. Well, after the Father Abbot had digested this piece of news, he was ushered in, and of course he saw nothing. He may have been tempted to say so, but when he heard the comedian chatting on about the beauties of this part of the picture and the failings of that, the abbot's courage left him, and he found himself agreeing, discussing the work, and even offering a few mild criticisms. The comedian had won the first round, and the rest was easy. The abbot explained to the monks that he personally was delighted with the new pictures, and if any of them found that they could see nothing, then they shouldn't be alarmed. It just meant that they were illegitimate, and no man can be blamed for his parents' error. When the monks were shown in, you won't be surprised to hear that they expressed vast admiration for these virgin white walls. And it was the same story with the people of the village, except, of course, for the one or two who were well known to be illegitimate. They quite happily admitted that they could see nothing. It was a dangerous kind of deception, because sooner or later, one or two or three were bound to compare notes, and then the game would be up. But fortunately for the comedian, things never reached that stage, because his friend the artist, who'd been held up by bandits, suddenly arrived. And then he was able to announce that he felt that the magic pictures were really unsuitable, that they'd only cause trouble, and that his artist friend would paint them some new ones. When the holy monks and the people of Fonni were eventually allowed in again, they all agreed that the pictures were as good as ever. And this time, of course, even the illegitimates could join the chorus of approval. Artistically speaking, these murals may not be of the highest order, but surely they're the only paintings in the world that had an entire village doubting the virtue of its parents.